Hi, this is Alan Gleeson for Crossfadr. This video will be a quick overview of Arturia's new wavetable and virtual analog software synthesizer. There's a lot to this monster, so let's take a look at some of the main features that make this an exciting synth to work with. The synth has all the features you are familiar with from other synths, but the functionality of those features has been extended. That combined with an extensive modulation section, effects section, and a powerful arpeggiator and sequencer make Pigments a go-to synth for a huge array of sounds. So to begin with, we'll actually look at the synth engine. You have two synth engines to work with, and within those synth engines you have two types of synthesis to choose from. You've got wavetable and analog. In the wavetable one, you can choose from a huge array of built-in wavetables, and you can also import your own. So when you select one of them, you can then morph your way through that particular waveform. So if you just play a sound here. You can see as I'm altering the position within the wavetable, we're getting a very wide range of sounds. So that's very powerful unto itself, but then you've also got various ways that you can actually modulate the sound. You've got FM modulation, phase distortion, and wave folding. So I'll just turn up some of these dials. Give you an example of the sort of sounds that you can quickly dial in. As well as the wavetable synth engine, you've also got an analog synth engine. Now in the analog synth engine, you've got 3 oscillators, and you've also got a noise source. So that within itself allows you a huge range of sound possibilities. Now you can combine that with a second sound engine where you have access to the same synth engines. So you've got your analog and the wavetable. So I'll put the two of these together. So the animation that you're hearing in the sound is coming from the modulation and the filtering. We'll come to that in a minute. So I'll change the first one back to analog. So I can isolate these. So I can work on them independently or combine the two together. Just to the right of this section, you've got 2 filters to choose from. Now the advantage here is that you benefit from Arturia's research into modeling other classic synthesizers. So as well as a multi-mode filter, you've got filter models that emulate Oberheim, Matrix, Minimoog, and so on, with a few custom ones such as the Surgeon and the Formant. So within these filter models, you've got the classic filter shapes from low pass, band pass, high pass, notch, and a few other variants. You can adjust your filtering to be in parallel or in series. Because we haven't got the second filter turned on there, we're not hearing anything, so I'll just turn that on. The resonance of the second one there. So just below that, this is what really adds power to the synthesizers. This is our modulation section here. Very visual, and we can clearly see what's happening as we're building up our modulation. You can see a lot of modulation going on in here. You can see various parameters being modulated. And down here is where we can either view the modulation that's happening, at the very bottom, or then on our individual sources here, we can select one of them and actually see what they're mapped to, or we can map an individual item that's not already mapped. So if I wanted to say map the resonance on this, there's 2 ways I can do it. I can select what I want to map it to, so say the LFO here, and click on a ring and then turn that up. And now if I go into my LFO, my third LFO, that's what's altering this here. So I can slow it down, speed it up, alter the waveform, alter the symmetry, alter the phase, smooth it out, and reset it from various locations. You can of course modulate the modulators by their effects. So if I wanted to say modulate the waveform with one of the other LFOs, the other way to route a control to a modulation source is that when you roll over it, you'll see a little plus there. So I can just click on that there and I can turn up say LFO2. And now you can see that this parameter is being modulated actually by this LFO here. So very powerful modulation, whereby you can get a lot of communication going on between the different sources. So you've got envelopes, LFOs, functions, random sources, and then you can combine different modulation sources and sum them in various ways. So very powerful. In the lower right hand corner, you've also got macro controls there. So if you're familiar with Ableton's racks, or you probably see macros on other synthesizers, they allow you to, if I select one of these, I can route any number of controls within the synthesizer to one control. Very useful in performance type situations. So as well as all these sound design options here, we also have an effects section. So you've got 2 inserts and then you've got an effects send. So in each of the inserts you can combine 3 different effects. The type of effects you have to choose from, some of them will be familiar. You've got multimode filters, parametric EQs, compressors, distortion, and then a few more unusual ones like wave folders, bit crushers, but you've got your standard chorus, flangers, phasers, and so on. These allow you to stay within the synthesizer, creating a sound and have all these sounds interacting with each other. So as well as the effects section, you've also got a sequencer and an ARP section. So to look at the sequencer in action, I'll switch over to one of my other sounds. Now, actually, there's no actual sequence playing within this. So if you go to our sequencer section on this, you can see that it's not actually playing. Where the animation is coming from is all the combination of the modulation that we have controlling various parameters within the synthesizer. So if I actually turn on the sequencer, and I'll just draw in a random pattern here, but now I'll put this to a particular scale, say harmonic minor. So you've got a randomized control here, so you can set the amount of randomization. If I put randomized to 1 bar, it means that after every 1 bar it's going to randomize. So currently the top line, the melody that I put in, you can see it's not been randomized because it's set to 0. But my octave just below it, which is set to 100%, will randomize every parameter. My gate length has also been randomized. If I was to turn up the trigger probability, turn up the slide, so we're very quickly getting a lot of nice variation. So a very powerful sequencer. So I've got 4 sounds from Pigments and I'll play them all together. I've got a drum patch here. This is just a single version of Pigments. We've got our 2 synth engines, and you can see the complicated modulation that we have here is controlling various volumes within our 2 synth engines, which is giving the various different tones. You can see there's no filter action happening. So it's all these variations being generated solely in the synth engine. There's a bit of effects being added, but the sequencer or the ARP is not being engaged. So we're putting in our bass. We've already looked at the sequence, and the 4th part that I'll bring in is just a string part. So this is using Ableton's arpeggiator. So this is just the pattern that we're listening to is coming from the arpeggiator, and then notice the sounds have been modulated within here. So we've got some filter modulation, no effects, and no sequence happening. So if I wanted some of that modulation, so if I wanted to put it to LFO1, just grab that. So very intuitive, very powerful, very quick to get the results that you're after. And with 4 instances of it there, doing a lot of complicated features. You can see I'm only on 30%. So lots of scope to add more effects, even more versions of Pigments. So that was a quick overview of the new synth from Arturia Pigments. And this has been Alan Gleeson for Crossfadr. Please remember to like and subscribe our videos and click on the bell to get notifications of new updates on any new videos that we upload.